once you see these things, anybody can do this stuff. And that's my main goal. I look at, our mission is to get as many native plants in the ground to support pollinators as we can. And the best way to do that from a multiplicative standpoint is to teach other people how to do it. I don't know. I just think it kind of refocuses the way you look at spaces around you. And there's a big piece of this environmental psychology discussion where when people are surrounded with diverse, dynamic environments, statistically, they report a greater feeling of well-being and they're in general happier. Statistically, they feel better sense of well-being and they're happier people. My name is Dan Schutte, and I own Shoreview Natives, a native plant landscaping nursery up in Two Harbors, Minnesota. I've been working with native plants for about 15 years, and I actually got into it through education, working in K through 6 classrooms, using native plants and their seeds as a teaching tool. And I got really excited about how easy it was to grow native plants. So I started growing native plants as a hobby, transitioned into natural resource management for about 5 years, and saw another side of native plants through forest management, erosion control, rain gardens, and it's been really fun to kind of put those things together. Now we own a business. We grow native plants from seed, and we use them for a variety of purposes. We install them for folks in their own yards or businesses, and then we also offer retail and wholesale options of plants to anybody who's interested. Recently, we've just had a little more space. Our family moved from Lakeside in Duluth up to an acreage in Two Harbors, so we had more space to develop greenhouses and produce more plants. So as we've done that, the installations that we put in for people have kind of grown in, number and size and scope. I mean, the stuff we put in, it's positive in a lot of ways: water quality, soil retention, erosion, but then it's got this big educational and just like human interest bent to it where people just love seeing it. There's cool stuff happening in there. The hummingbirds are there, the monarch butterflies, things you never imagined, the clear-winged hummingbird moth that you just wouldn't see otherwise unless you had the native plant and the habitat right there in front of you. And then, of course, the animal comes to it. So it's just been really exciting to hear some of the results that people have shared with us from, how it's kind of impacted their lives getting these spaces planted with native vegetation. There's been this national conversation of pollinators and native plants recently, and I think as our business has started and kind of grown in parallel with that conversation, there's just been more awareness and interest in native plants. I love this education side of things. And the first thing I'll say usually when I talk to folks about, how do you do that is, we're not building satellite systems here. It's like a few very simple steps, and it's like anything else. Once you see these things, anybody can do this stuff. There's such an appetite for this stuff right now, and everybody's on a budget, and there's so many community groups where if you can learn this, there's just so many other touch points for people to plug into it, where I really, my ultimate goal is to become a platform and a hub for people to learn about what we do.
Yeah. There's no black box. There's no secrets, right? You feel like it's a better world if everybody knows how to do this.
I think it's a better world if everybody knows how to do this. I drive through town, I see these kind of, defunct little greenhouses in backyards that have become a storage site. And, sometimes people are like, geez, I just don't know what to do with it after they have it. And so, I think the options are endless on how people can take this on or do it. We started, literally with trays in the window or in the basement with a light rack, and it's amazing what you can grow in these small kind of corner nook spaces. And then you've got the resources at your fingertips. The sky's the limit as far as what you can do in your own space or for friends or start your own business. I think it's really catchy once you get into this stuff. And no, there's no secrets. There's tricks of the trade, but there's nothing, I mean, it's magical to watch, but there's no secret magic trick to making it happen. I mean, doing it, and then you kind of get addicted to the whole process. So anytime we can get an impression on kids and adults alike, really, when people get excited about this stuff, I get really excited. It's extremely motivating, and I feel like we all feed off of that energy. When people come back and say, oh man, this happened, or you should see the flower this year, or whatever it is, it's just so motivating. Yeah. Being exposed to this and participating in the process, you start to look at spaces differently. And I think it's cool. It's that passive education running in the background, lifelong learner type thing. And it's all positive. I mean, there is nothing about what we do where I feel guilty or it feels like we're, doing something wrong or hurting the earth. And that feels, honestly, when I go to bed at night, you work hard, you're tired, but you've got this, little knowledge inside that you're trying to do things better. And so that's been also very motivating. And to hear other people give us that feedback in the same way, it's really fun. Yeah, I feel like each garden makes a difference. There's kind of that feel good, like, oh, we got another garden in. But then there's this whole science piece to it. And, the scientists that have devoted their career in academia to studying pollinators and how we can best support their habitat, there's a huge discussion on trying to create these corridors or trying to create more dense patchworks on the landscape. And there's statistics and studies that point to the fact that we are supporting and increasing pollinator populations by this patchwork. We're a piece of the machine that's making this happen. The residents and people have to make the decisions, but our activities are putting the habitat in the ground that support these science-based indications that we're doing the right thing. And I speak to pollinators there, but there's water quality benefits to this stuff. There's erosion control, there's urban planning, there's environmental psychology benefits. So, there's a lot of boxes that we check with each project. And it does feel like, really in numerous ways, each garden we put in the ground is making a difference.